the Fan3Cast, dishing out the hottest NASCAR news and views while celebrating the three's historic comeback. Here are your hosts, Michael Metzger and Jason Schultz. One of the most exciting weekends of the NASCAR season is in the books. Whenever you have the three national series going toe-to-toe-to-toe, it always is a good time. We had Joey Logano pull off the victory. Is this a sign that maybe Logano's coming into his own as the season is getting closer and closer to the chase?
He's definitely shaping up right now to be a really strong championship contender, and his performance on Saturday night definitely showed his team strength and showed how well he can run when he's got a great car and a fast car. And this was definitely an eye-opening performance because we saw in the beginning of the season, yeah, he was doing really well, but could he do anything once the season goes on? And now that we're 2 races away from the chase and he's winning, he will definitely be one to watch out for, and definitely someone to look forward to contend for the final 4 spots at Homestead in November.
I give him and his team a lot of credit because I never thought Joey Logano short track ace, but now he has 2 short track wins to his credit this year, the other coming at Richmond. And then add in that Brad Keselowski, his teammate, finished second right behind him, and that team's really showing that they not only got one team going, but they got 2 strong contenders.
And definitely Keselowski's going to be right up there with Logano and the other top contenders when the chase comes, because he has shown he can win and dominate any time he has the best car on the track,
which seems to be happening more often than not. There were a couple drivers that were happy to get away from the Bristol Motor Speedway and the safety of Atlanta Motor Speedway coming up here. That included Denny Hamlin and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Denny Hamlin went around after contact with Kevin Harvick. Unfortunately, no place to go for Dale Earnhardt Jr. He ended up taking off the entire side of his car on Hamlin's injured vehicle. What we did see was from Denny Hamlin was what some people are calling controversial move, where he ended up throwing his Hans device at Kevin Harvick as he drove by. Now, Jason, you watched the race. I actually did not get a chance to watch the race, so I'm relying on you for this, but was that a violation of the new safety rule that was put in place by NASCAR?
Absolutely not. Hamlin was out of his car. The safety crew had got to him, and this is probably like 5 minutes after he wrecks it. He's out of his car, walking to the ambulance, and Harvick comes by. Hamlin throws a very nice toss of his Hans device up the bank and at Harvick's car, bounces off Harvick's car, and came back down the track. But Hamlin was on the apron. He did not, put himself in danger by going too far on the track. This was just a complete fair game call, and I'm glad NASCAR didn't really penalize him at all, because he did nothing wrong. There was no rule against throwing stuff on the track, showing anger. This is what we're going to see now, that with the new rule, drivers aren't going to get right up on the track and try to confront another car or get close into other helmet. They're just going to be a good distance away, follow the rules, throw the thing, show their anger, and that'll be done with. And Hamlin was really angry at the whole situation. He said he was the maddest he's ever been after his car was put back in the garage, and he was going to be one of the strong contenders for the race at the end. This had not happened, and I know he thought he could get to victory lane for the second time this season.
Well, it seemed like, in my opinion, I did catch the replay of this incident, not so much Hamlin throwing the Hans device, but it did seem like Harvick was maybe pushing the issue just a little bit too early into the race to be racing that hard for the lead. I think it was 100 laps in.
Yeah, he should have been. I gave Hamlin a little more room and maybe waited a few laps before putting his nose there, because he definitely was not there yet, and if he waited 2 laps, maybe he would be there. But all of this was definitely some signs of the old Bristol, and despite the main groove being in the high line instead of the low line, this had the looks of everything Bristol used to have, and the Bristol fans loved. The crowd was fantastic. They looked good. Probably the biggest crowd there in years, and the racing was great. All the short track action, the tempers, the wrecks, the close quarter racing, and drivers definitely got into each other a little bit, which always creates for some excitement. So definitely one of the most interesting and fun to watch Bristol races we've had in quite some time.
Definitely better than when you went down there a few years ago, right?
Actually, I really like that race. I think this is compared comparable to it because when I went, it was the first year with their the new surface that they have now, and I thought they were great. And this one probably maybe topped it a little, but that one definitely had a really fantastic ending, and this one was a little spread out, but they were both pretty good, and definitely Old Bristol shining through.
Now I got to throw a wild card in here because when we were talking about Denny Hamlin and his issues, I started thinking about Denny Hamlin's teammate, your boy Kyle Busch. What are we to make of him and his crew chief, Dave Rogers, getting into a bit of a spat over the radio? Is it maybe time for them to go their separate ways in their careers, or is this just one of those temper moments brought on by the close racing at Bristol, compounded by the fact that Busch has had a terrible last 4 races?
It's all going to depend on what they do over the next 12 races. If they just do nothing in the chase and aren't really a contender and maybe get eliminated early on, then I think Joe Gibbs definitely looks at it and probably pairs Busch with a new crew chief. And I think it was just probably a heat of the moment thing. Busch is definitely angry. He hasn't finished better than 36 or so since July, and he really needs his team to be on top of their game. He would like to be on top of his game when the chase comes because he knows if he's got everything going for him by the time we're in Chicagoland, he has a great shot at the championship. But they've got to work their problems out before that comes because they can't have anything else on their minds once the chase arrives.
So if Joe Gibbs Racing isn't already thinking about what they could do in the crew chief position next year for Kyle Busch, there's also questions around Denny Hamlin's crew chief, Darian Grubb, whether he will come back or not. But then throw into the mix that they just announced that they signed Carl Edwards to a multi-year deal, which means that they'll have to find another crew chief to pair up with Carl Edwards, as all reports indicate that Jimmy Fenning, his current crew chief at Roush Fenway Racing, will be staying put. Jason, I gotta ask, this is one of the worst kept secrets in the NASCAR garage about Edwards joining Joe Gibbs Racing. Can they pull off a 4th car team? We've debated on here a few times about teams like Richard Childress Racing who go to 4 teams and struggle, drop down to 3 teams and usually have pretty good luck. Is this going to put a lot of strain on their team?
I think there's a little bit of a difference between what RCR did in 4 teams and what Joe Gibbs is doing. I feel like RCR was a little bit rushed in how they brought out their 4 teams, and Joe Gibbs seems like they've been thinking about this for years, and they've always, thought about it. They knew what they were going to do if they would have had a 4th team, and now the time just seems right. They've got everything going for them, and now that they've got the 4th team, I think they're going to do well next season. And the crop of drivers now at Joe Gibbs is probably the 2nd or 3rd best out there compared to the other teams. And it's going to be really interesting to see how all these guys work together and see how the team does next season. And I think overall it'll be a good move and a good season ahead for Joe Gibbs Racing.
My biggest question with this move is we've seen Matt Kenseth come over and do well his first year last year. This year he has yet to get a win after 7 wins last year. It seems like the team kind of is streaky. They got Hamlin and Busch into the chase right now, but I don't know. It's another case of, if you look at Hendrick Motorsports, they have 4 teams, but it always seems like 3 teams are firing on all cylinders and 1 team's off doing whatever it's doing. And it's just so hard to get that balance amongst all 4 of them. It'll be very interesting to see if they can get that going with Carl Edwards. And then the other interesting or weird thing I took away from this is the number 19 will be used by Carl Edwards. I guess I never really put much thought into what number that Gibbs might be using, but it makes sense from an aspect of they'll have the 18, 19, and 20 cars plus the 11, but it's just 19, just not a number you normally see racing out there week in, week out.
No, it's definitely different, and it'll be interesting to see how the whole Edwards team works, because it'll be a fairly new team. They probably won't have worked together before, so pretty new, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. In other silly season news, Greg Biffle, who was dropped by sponsor 3M back a few weeks ago, has found a new company to go across his hood for the 2015 season, and that is Ortho Yard Care. Roush Fenway Racing had a relationship with the sponsor previously. They had a few years off, and now they're back, and good to see Biffle get a sponsor because that's pretty important, and glad to see this company reinvest in NASCAR.
Not only are they reinvesting after years with Roush, but you can put your way back machine on and go. They used to sponsor in the truck series. I wish I would have looked this up, but I'm pretty sure it was the number 25. It was definitely a yellow truck with the red ortho lettering on it. And that's, like you said, Jason, there's so many companies that when they get into NASCAR, they're there for a few years and then they just disappear and you know you're never going to see them again. And it's good to see a company that could come in, spend some money, disappear, but then realize the value of NASCAR racing and come back to it.
More news regarding 2015 involves the schedule for all three series. NASCAR announced that it was Tuesday evening, and some surprises, I would say. There are a bunch of, little change-ups, and there are changes I think fans wanted. Fans just wanted change to the schedule. I think this is a different kind of change than we were thinking. I know I wanted some new tracks. This is pretty much just a few shake-ups regarding different races and different weeks. And the main change we're seeing is Darlington move from its April slot to its September Labor Day slot, like the Southern 500 used to run on. That's going to be one interesting and hot race once we get to Labor Day in a year from now.
I believe it was Ryan McGee of ESPN, I think, said it best. Well, I really appreciate, this is me talking for right now, but I appreciate NASCAR going back to the Labor Day tradition of the Southern 500 being run on there. But as McGee mentioned, it's going to be up to the fans whether this move is successful or not. If nobody shows up to this event, then who's to say that it's not going to get changed in the year after? If everyone realizes how special this event is and gets out there and watches the race, and you have the fixings for a very good night at Darlington. So it'll be interesting to see how the fans react to it. But I love that change. Anything that goes back in history always tugs at my heartstrings. Overall, like you said, Jason, not many moves. I agree, I would have liked to have seen a few new tracks jump in there. I would have loved to have seen the chase shooken up. But apparently nobody really requested it outside of Las Vegas Motor Speedway wanting the season finale, but that's not happening as long as Ford is involved with Homestead. So what you get is just a little rearranging here and there. Atlanta being the second race of the season, I hope they have snowplows ready for that because the weather wasn't good when they ran in March, so now they're going to run in February. So I don't know what they're thinking with that one.
Some other things I noted, it was just some of the off weeks that they have, like they added an off week in, they moved the July one to the end of June, which comes at a weird time. It's after Michigan, before Sonoma, and that's like Fox's last two races they have on the season. And I was just wondering why they would put the off week there instead of move it back 1 week, put Sonoma after Michigan, and just do a transition off week between Fox and NBC. That didn't make much sense to me, real random off week. And then I'm afraid that the off week they put at the end of August, right before the chase and before Labor Day, if that will kill any momentum NASCAR has going for the race to the chase before we get down to the final 10 races. I hope it doesn't really hurt the momentum, but I just have a feeling it could have some effect next season.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the very first race for NBC will be Daytona, July 5th. The race being run Sunday night instead of the normal Saturday, which was weird but understandable if they're going to be on NBC. Normally, with July 4th actually being on that Saturday, NBC would rather show local fireworks coverage than the race. So after next year, you should expect that race to go back to Saturday. And yeah, I would agree with you. They definitely need something to kind of break up the monotony of the second half of the season, because doing about 18 straight races is going to kill everyone that works on these crews and even just anyone else associated with NASCAR. You need that breather in there, but the timing of it is, it'll leave, one or two races for people to get into the chase, so momentum's going to be a big thing, and they may lose that.
Another thing I noted on the schedule is shake-up of which races are broadcasted on which channel. For the Cup Series, I was wondering how Fox and Fox Sports 1 would break up their portion of the schedule, and I'm actually pretty happy with how they're doing it. Fox Sports 1 isn't taking any of the really big races away, and Fox is still holding a majority of them, which I think is great move. But then when NBC and NBC Sports Network did their breakup of their races, it just confused confuses me with the choices NBC made. They put some questionable races on NBC while they left some of the bigger races, like Indianapolis, on the NBC Sports Network. And that just confused me. I don't know why they wouldn't put the bigger races on the bigger channel, because more people would watch them. Maybe they have other events going on those days, but that definitely confused me a little. I know that they've got the last 3 races of the season on NBC, but I think fans would rather see some of the bigger races during the regular season and beginning of the chase on the bigger channel, NBC. And one thing I also noted was the NBC, to start off the chase, they put all those races on NBC Sports Network. So they put Richmond, they put Chicagoland. That really confuses me, because I don't know how big of a lead up that will create for the chase versus having Chicagoland on NBC so everyone can watch. And then quickly touching on how the NBC and Fox did the breakup for the Nationwide Series, that also confused me a bunch too, because they have some of the biggest races on Fox Sports 1 and NBC Sports Network again. So I hope someone revisits that for next season, because I know there's some really odd things they did there.
I'm going to lean towards, for NBC Sports Network, that they're trying to put more of the marquee events on there to drive up people going to that channel and checking it out. It's kind of what I always feared when Fox was flirting with using FX for the races, that they'd put events on there that some people couldn't see, but just to kind of push all the cable outlets to actually carry the station. Why they picked and choose some of these races, I'm with you. It's almost like they threw a dart at the wall to kind of figure it out. And looking at the nationwide schedule really quick, same basic breakup. There's 6 standalone events. Everything else is in conjunction with the Cup Series. One major note is they moved Road America to an off weekend for the Cup Series, so it'll be interesting to see if any of the road course aces will pick up an extra race running the Nationwide Series. And the Truck Series actually added a race, so they'll have 23 next year going back to the Atlanta Motor Speedway. But I still say they need about 25, and I wish they would add some new track.
Yeah, definitely some new track would be very much liked by the fans. If NASCAR can do that, I know it's probably hard to get that going, but if they can, fans would definitely appreciate it. And now we will jump back into the 2014 season. We still have 12 races left. Our power rankings after Bristol, I have Joey Logano on top, powered by Brad Keselowski and Jeff Gordon. They have been the most consistent lately. They've been ran the best. Keselowski's going to be there. He's been consistent. He's been winning. He's been dominating. He is really shaping up to be a strong contender. And Logano, with the win, he's definitely been impressive, and Sam Gordon.
My stats-based rankings here keeps it at Gordon, Keselowski, and Harvick. All 3 drivers, again, statistically speaking, hitting their marks, getting the points that they need to maintain their positioning. But yeah, definitely Logano, after that win, is going to be a dark horse that many will have to deal with going into the chase. So Jason, as you alluded to, 12 races to go in the season. That means 2 races are left before the chase. We're going to the Atlanta Motor Speedway for Labor Day event, for the only race that's held at Atlanta in the season. So what can we expect? Can we finally see one of these drivers punch their ticket into the chase with a win, or are we going to see the same old up front?
One thing I noticed looking back on the last few winners of this race, the winner is usually a surprise compared to what we've been seeing as of late. So it's going to be interesting to see which driver gets the victory lane. It could be one of the guys on the outside looking in, or it could be just one of the guys already with their win that's been sort of quiet as of late. So that would definitely be interesting. Last year's Atlanta race, I thought that was fantastic. It had a bunch of action. The tire fall off with some new tire Goodyear is using for Atlanta. It makes the race really interesting because tire management comes into play, and I just enjoyed that factor of the race, and hopefully it makes for another interesting race, because I know fans would definitely enjoy that.
I think you're going to see a lot of teams taking that extra risk to either get another victory or get their first of the season. Tires will probably be the key, whether they hold up or not. I'll be interested to see if we break any more records in qualifying, the way that they've been falling left and right, the new car and the new qualifying procedures. So it's going to be a crapshoot to figure out who's going to win this, Jason. And I was looking over the stats and trying to make my decision, and it's the Hendrick boys, Gordon and Johnson, that have the best record the last 15 events at Atlanta. But I'm going to lead for my pick to win with another Hendrick Motorsports car, and not one that you would think. I'm going to go with Casey Kane. He's got 2 wins, 2 poles, and 17 starts, 6 top 5s, 8 top 10s. His average finish is not very good at 19.568, but we've been talking all year long that he's a streaky driver. He just needs to get on that roll, and I think that he can get that win at Atlanta, a track very similar to Charlotte, which he won last year, the 600. So I'm going to give it to Casey Kane.
I'm going to go with Mr. Clint Boyer. I just think it's his time to get a win. He hasn't won since Charlotte in 2012. He led 48 laps in the last season's race before engine troubles took him out of the race. So he's done well here before. He needs a win. His team can definitely take, I would say, some sort of a fuel risk or tire risk at the end of the race. They just need to get a good finish. And I just see them having a really good day on Sunday night and getting to victory lane.
This is definitely going to be a race where the crew chiefs will earn their pay for sure, making those calls on fuel mileage, tires, and the whole 9 yards.
Yes, and this race really brings the end to the summer stretch of races. We've had fantastic races all summer long, and I bet we see one last great one on Sunday night.
And it will only get intensified as we leave Atlanta looking forward to Richmond. But in Atlanta, we'll see if anyone else can punch their ticket into the chase. If not, it's going to be one heck of a shootout in a couple weeks at Richmond.
Thanks for listening to the Fan3Cast. For more NASCAR coverage, check out StartingParkBlog.com and Turn4RacingNews.com. Follow along on Twitter at Fan3Cast, at StartingParkBlog, and at NASCARJason.